So,
Welcome to the Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal webcast. My name is Lisa Johnson. I'm the conference manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I'd like to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and they'll be brought up at the end. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association.
thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the New Normal, your go-to source for discussions on the gaming industry and key issues facing Native American tribes. I'm Victor Rocha, conference chairman of the Indian Gaming Association, joined by my co-host Jason Giles, executive director of the Indian Gaming Association. Good morning, Jason.
How you doing, Victor?
I'm good. Today, we're joined by James Siva, our dear friend, chairman of the California Nations Indian Gaming Association. And I believe, Dustin, this is your first time on our webinar because I was looking and I thought for sure.
First time caller. Yeah, first time caller, long time listener.
Oh, thank you, Dustin.
Analyst, for closing line to discuss sweepstakes prediction markets and the fight for the future of gambling in California. So much to cover, so big issue. We really don't have a lot of time. James, welcome back, Dustin. First of all, before we go, we got to talk about Dustin. We were just talking about how Dustin has kind of become part of the news cycle. Over the weekend, Dustin found out that Kelce was hired a new affiliate or somebody, a new sponsor, and they were just pushing out the hate speech, right?
Yeah, they had an affiliated account on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. That was like called Newswire, where they're Insider Wire, sorry, where they're like engaging with people doing like Nazis, like agreeing with Nazi sentiment. And I was like, I like saw this account and like started going down this rabbit hole of what's going on. And like, there's all this hate speech in the last week. I started like screenshotting and putting it out. Like an hour later, Kelce tweets out, "We've terminated our relationship with this account." I mean, it had the little Kelce logo on the account, and it's like, they said it was a top level like affiliate advertising agreement. They had their name on it. They gave them the badge, so it's like pick your poison, I guess. But it is kind of indicative of how fast and loose things are going, despite the fact that like Kelce, I think, likes to argue it's very highly regulated, but I'd say that regulation isn't the same as it exists in the gambling industry or the sports betting industry right now.
Yeah, you know what? I once saw an interview with a songwriter, and he said, he always Stephen Sondheim, and he said he only used a dictionary from 1942 because that had the language that he liked when he was writing his songs. And I think these guys have a dictionary they like to have of their own, a definition of words of like gambling and stuff like that too. It's the same thing. And but the other big one, Dustin, was the Freedom of Information Act. And what was that about too? That one was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I did with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, which oversees prediction markets and a lot of other things. I did a for Freedom of Information Act request to the CFTC, asking for all information and emails that were written by Brian Quintenz, who is the nominee to be the CFTC head, and his presumptive chief of staff. It came out that I don't know if there's really a smoking gun in there, but there were some questions that it raised about whether they were trying to get information early before he was actually the chairman of the CFTC, whether that was appropriate, whether he was getting any information that might impact other competitors of Kelce. Brian Quinten sits on the board of Kelce, and so this came up. It kind of was a slow burn, and then some cryptocurrency folks really started running with it. And I know the Winklevoss twins, which are highly involved in crypto, kind of latched on to the report and the FOIA and said, like, what's going on here? It kind of the Quinten's nomination then got slowed to the point that there's Senate's in recess right now, so he can't be confirmed, and there's some question about what will happen when the Senate comes back into session here. So we'll see. I don't think who leads the CFTC is really going to change much in terms of Kelce and where prediction markets are going. This is going to come through the courts, but it might end up being that Quintenz, who's on the board of Kelce and who stands to benefit from the rollout of prediction markets writ large here in the United States, might not end up being the chair of the CFTC. I don't know the odds of that right now. It's maybe a coin flip. Maybe we should get a prediction market on of whether Quintens will get not
That is
get confirmed
very
or not. But
ironic that they haven't done that yet, don't you think? It's
I think
just
Polymarket, who's not really regulated in the U.S., should. That would be funny. There's
right.
not, but there's really not anything. It's funny what the lines that they draw between what's okay in a prediction market and what's not, because there's like Kalshi does draw certain lines. Like they put up this, like, the thing that's most famous is when, remember the whole thing about the UHC CEO being when he was killed, right? And then Kalshi put up markets about the case and how it resolved. I'm like, this is a murder case. Do we need to be betting, trading on this? Arguably not. A lot of stuff on Kalshi is kind of harmless and more casual and more just whatever is going on in culture. But like there's lines where like people are dying. Like we shouldn't be betting on that. And like, I guess the CFTC is off limits, although there's lots of stuff about like whether like the Treasury Secretary will leave or like all these other things. Like, so the line, like it would actually be a really good CFTC prediction market if we could bet on whether Quintens will be the leader of the CFTC. That's like a great use case. I'd love to know what the public and what insiders think about those odds, but
Start watching that line move by mysterious bettors. You know
right?
what I mean?
Quintens can hedge on whether he'll become the CFTC chair or not. That would be super
Dustin,
interesting.
after that, we haven't seen Quintens in, how many weeks the guy has gone underground. Where's Waldo? Where's Quintens? So he's been MIA. So the rumor is you're part of the cartel. Nobody's found him. Have you noticed any like white vans in front of your house or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's quiet because like
on the side of the logo.
I think it's quiet because the Senate's out of session. Like the only reporting I see, again, like the cryptocurrency people are really like, we think we're up in arms. Like cryptocurrency, like their community and industry is really focused on what the CFTC is, because they have this larger role to play in what's going to happen from the federal government and policy around crypto. And the CFTC is just going to play a large role in that. So they're really hyper focused on whether it's Quintens or somebody else. I think some back him, some don't, and we'll see where that comes. Like he was trying to rally support in the cryptocurrency community because like as much as we think we're a big deal, like prediction markets and the gambling industry aren't going to be the ones who quash this. I don't think it would be the cryptocurrency community. I think I obviously raised some concerns that are now playing out over in that sector of the world, but like I think like we'll see more in September. I think like I don't know. We're down to one. There's literally, so the CFTC usually has 5 commissioners. They're literally going to be down to 1 in less than a week. And it's going to be the acting chair, Carolyn Pham, who's been overseeing basically this giant rollout, right, of prediction markets so far. So like it's a bit of a fraught time. Like, again, it also doesn't lead us to believe that the CFTC is really being regulated in a material way, because if we only have 1 commissioner. There's been plenty of reporting about this, like, rank and file at the CFTC doesn't think they have the resources to do this. Under the Trump administration, there's no way the CFTC is going to get more resources, I don't think. So, this huge thing, prediction markets and potentially sports betting nationwide is potentially under the remit of the CFTC right now, and there's not a whole lot of reason to believe they're going to get more resources to deal with that as time goes on.
Well, and that's why I think it makes such a contrast with what's going on in DC and what's going on in California. And by the way, yesterday the big announcement was that Don Jr.'s investment company invested in Polymarket. So, you can't really talk about them and treat them as a government, a very serious situation. I think they see this at the confusion and the disarray in the federal government as an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. That's exactly what we're looking at. Nobody's going to come out. The adults are going to come in and say this isn't going to happen. Congress doesn't seem to be. I think, Dustin, you exactly put your finger on it. Is that it's really going to be somebody much larger and bigger than us. I think we're outside loud voices, but I don't really think we measure. But in California, we do. In California, we do. And that is a big deal over here, because California is the land of milk and honey for everybody in the industry. I think for me, gosh, there's so much. First of all, Jason, I apologize in there. I wanted to get a little.
No, because that's important. And Dustin, just for your info, if right now, if Quintens doesn't get confirmed, it's because the clock is running short and there probably is a government shutdown in October. and the Senate again just won't be able to get them through. So timing's a little bit on our and luck are on our side as well. But with the sweepstakes, we're seeing good state movement on the sweepstakes, James. And what do we see about this bill's passage in California? First off, James, when their session is over, right? But are they going to have a
They're on a brief break, but they're
okay?
just on a couple week break and they'll be back.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. And so right now in California sweepstakes, our focus is AB 831, which CNIGA is proud to co-sponsor along with Yavitam of the Samoa Nation.
Mhm.
Really, again, I mentioned this in previous webinars. A lot of times we keep having to wait for action from state officials who should be fulfilling these responsibilities, people like attorney generals. Again, this was another instance where we've been bringing this up about sweepstakes, about these kind of gray market activities, being unregulated, having no tax base, having no consumer protections for those individuals, very similar to some of the stuff happening now with prediction markets. And the AG just wouldn't act. We've known that Attorney General Bonta has had these proposed regulations on his desk since November of 2023. And now, not until we've ran this bill that we see them released. And surprise, surprise, they're pretty much in alignment with, the elements of the piece of legislation we're bringing forth. Really trying to focus on the dual currency aspects of sweepstakes, because sweepstakes has become this kind of catch-all term for a lot of different forms of gaming that fall into this unregulated kind of gray area. But we have, massive travel support. Uh, we're moving very quickly. The bill is being received very well. This is one of those weird instances where we're aligned with some of our enemies on other points. So surprising to see companies like FanDuel and DraftKings support the bill as well. Really come out against some of these major sweepstakes companies, namely Prize Picks. That's probably more of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend more than they actually support the cause. But we're hopeful to get some traction on this. But at the same time, these prediction markets continue to grow in market share here in California. We've been, the update from Dustin, I think, was fantastic, especially on the nomination with Quintens and that uncertainty there. And Jason, you lay out kind of the schedule looking forward, and maybe we will get lucky enough that the schedule doesn't work out for them, and they're going to have to, kind of change trajectory on that nomination and maybe get some more input. But or at least delay it. But then we're kind of stuck where we are now, right? With status quo, with one acting chair, who has made no indication they have any change in their perspective on this coming down the road. I think again, Dustin's point on this was absolutely correct. If there is going to be a change in this activity, it's going to have to be forced through the courts.
Yeah, and I'll like what you said there.
Yeah.
Like the status quo is arguably like maybe the best thing for Kalshi. Like they don't want no new chair, there's no new commissioners coming in. There's not going to be any pushback at all. Like right now, this is like there's nothing that's going to stop them right now. So like I'd argue that they're pretty happy with yeah. So it'd be great that if Quintens is chair, but like whoever replaces him, let's say he doesn't do it, it's not going to materially change how the arc of prediction markets. Somebody else will be brought in that's similarly free markets, like let them do what they want. We can't read into the Commodity Exchange Act and do more with this. We just have to let it happen. That's what happens. I think the interesting piece of like, as people game theory the future of prediction markets out, is what happens if there's a Democratic president in 2028 and an administration comes in. Like obviously in that world, we'll have like a lot of court cases. There'll be a lot more have happened. But at that point, the CFTC under a Democratic regime might say, what the heck is this? We can't do this. This is like, and which is also different from what's going on now, because CFTC is just saying, whatever, you can't do it. They haven't, you can do it. We're not even saying that. They're just saying, they're not saying anything, right? They're just like, you can do this. So like that world is pretty fraught. That's why everybody's kind of has to hedge a little bit on what this is going to look like. Cause there's a real chance in 3 years that we like, so like this all gets unwound. I don't know what that looks like. That would be a huge mess. But as time goes on, the more things get accepted and the courts say it's okay. But I think like that's like that a regime change to the CFTC would be a pretty major thing. So like if you're planning the future, like the CFTC is not going to write rules. They're not going to write regulations around this. It's just going to happen. I think anybody, we saw the NFL talk about this a little bit. I was on the media call this week, and they keep talking about them and the NCAA and others. Like, we want strong regulations. You're not getting regulations, man. Like, what exists is what exists, and some of that is good from like an AML and a financial perspective, but none of it has anything to do with gambling and what goes on in terms of gambling and integrity, match integrity, and responsible gambling and all that stuff. None of that is coming. So like you're wish casting if you're the NFL thinking that's going to happen. It'll have to happen privately or happen half it like in a self-regulatory, quasi-regulatory way through some sort of trade group or something like that, which is possible, but it's not going to happen through like real regulation.
And Dustin, real quick, just to circle back on that, I mean, with the sweepstakes, is there an element of crypto? I mean, if we start to normalize crypto and two pieces of legislation have already been passed, isn't it going to make it harder to stop these things if you can use something like crypto that's, mostly anonymous? I'm just not smart enough really, or because there's a crypto component that just keeps coming back. I keep telling everyone on this. I was just shocked when I went to Quintenz's nomination hearing, and 80% of the talk in the agricultural committee was about damn cryptocurrency, including from senators in West Virginia and Alabama who don't know. I don't know if they know anything about regular currency, and here they are, just saying how great it's going to be, and they have talking
It's called
points.
fiat currency now. That's
Yeah,
what
well, yeah.
it's called.
And like you said, there's just a language that I guess everybody gets all of a sudden, and they just keep spitting it out. But I really, you say 2028, that's 3.5 years for things to go terribly off the rails with another crypto disaster or just some huge betting scandal. What's your take on all this and how it relates to sweepstakes?
As much as we're all playing like California and other jurisdictions, and a lot of us in the industry are playing catch up on sweeps and prediction markets and all of that. Like crypto is like the one is another level of, I don't think people have wrapped their heads around it. There are right now tons of cryptocurrency casinos and things like that are, they're not technically serving the US. There's, you can get around it. You can use Polymarket is technically banned from the US until they launch later this year as a CFTC regulated prediction market. But like you can using a VPN and crypto wallet, you can easily defeat this stuff. Like that's obviously a little bit of a that's a level of nuance that's like not your average gambler, average person like knows how to do all that stuff, but it's definitely possible to do and not that hard in the grand scheme of things. Like, but crypto gambling, I think in particular, is one that the industry, like regulators haven't wrapped their heads around it. The industry hasn't wrapped their heads around it, but this is already here. It's going to grow. Yes, in a Trump administration where cryptocurrency is increasingly like, they're putting some guardrails in, but really they're trying to grow it, and like they're trying to regulate it but deregulate it, if that makes sense. They want it to become under federal regulation, but they want no breaks, right? They want to be able to do what they want, and that's kind of like, again, kind of what the act that they passed and what's going to happen at the SEC and the CFTC is going to be on that. Is that going to intersect with gambling? I don't know, probably not, but in a world where cryptocurrency is constantly more and more accepted, and the federal government is getting involved but being hands off on it, you have to start looking at the future of that, and how and adoption of it eventually, and how it can be used. Like, I don't think the gambling industry can sit here and say we're, at least even in the land based, right? Like you can just sit here and say we're not ever going to get involved in cryptocurrency. Like that, like this is going to come more and more. It's been relatively low adoption in terms of like states that allow it. Like I think Wyoming and Virginia have like some minimal ways that you can deposit with crypto. You can't actually bet with it, I don't believe. I think you have to change it to fiat. But for me, crypto is really like, there's going to be, it's, I don't think anybody's really understands the opportunity or the risk or any of that. It's still very nascent, and there's lots to come on that front.
Well, and there's this real big push to bring crypto into mainstream, which is what we're talking about here. But and part of this in California is what you're seeing, especially with California Attorney General's opinion about DFS plus you saw that Underdog and Prize Picks are talking about going into prediction markets now too. So sweepstakes, which is also we're talking about when we talk about sweepstakes, we're talking about the Social Promotional Gaming Association, which is what executive director is Chris Grove, partner emeritus and strategic advisor to Eilers Krejcik Gaming, and then Social Gaming Leadership Alliance, which is Lawrence Escalani, founder of VGW. So those are basically the two players that we're dealing with in California. They have not been running a good game. James, so I guess the big news now is, the thing that cracks me up is how the industry media, and a lot of the industry media is supported by sweepstakes advertising, online gaming advertising, offshore. And these guys just get breathless when the announcement came that one tribe had joined the SGLA. Then yesterday it was Big Lagoon and Virgil Moorhead. In my mind, I see Chris Grove giving these guys piggyback so they can reach the microphone and tell everyone what they need to hear. But this is a strategy. What's that when they say when you repeat the same thing over and over again, expecting to get the different results, right? Stupidity. That's
Insanity.
what we're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah.
stupidity. That's what the word we're looking for. So we've seen this game plan before.
Yes, exactly. This is exactly what we've seen before, where it's a classic conquer and divide tactic from these companies, where they try to pick off some of the small, limited and non-gaming tribes and, try to make these outlandish promises to them that essentially just asking them to sell a little bit of their sovereignty away, is what it comes down to in the end. And
No, sell our sovereignty away.
yes,
Sell
because
CNIGA's sovereignty away. Sell Tassin's sovereignty away. You know,
absolutely. And, at the same time, like, I don't blame the individual tribes for making decisions that they need to make for the betterment of their people. Those are tough decisions. And some of these tribes that have announced these partnerships, there's tribes that still struggle with, providing basic resources for their members. And it's, frankly, it's a shame that we do have, tribal brothers and sisters in this state that are living in those conditions today. But at the same time, like collectively, we've done so much to improve the lives of every single tribal person in the state of California. And we've done that utilizing gaming as a way to both increase our tribal economies, but also as an expression of our sovereignty. And if you hold on to that at the core, it's not about the economics or the money. It's really about reminding everyone about our status as sovereign nations within the construct of the United States. And that's what it comes down to with these agreements is they're really trying to lessen what that means. They're trying to move tribal gaming into similar discussions of any other industry about, how you talk about commercial gaming. And tribal gaming is as different from commercial gaming as it gets. And I think that's why they try to pick off these smaller tribes to take advantage of that, to lessen that argument, to lessen that viewpoint from the California voter. And um, you know, part of it is we could do some better outreach to those tribes. We can. It's difficult here in California. 109 federally recognized tribes, the biggest economy of this country. It's a lot to handle, but we need to do better outreach. We need to be sharing information so that tribes know you can't trust what these companies are telling you. They're coming and they're asking you to sell the very thing that makes you different from other people for a price. And like we can do this together. We can stick together and make this happen. Like you don't need to partner with them. Why would you trust an outsider when we have tribes that are willing to do this with you? Um, but this one I think is just a desperate kind of last minute maneuver from these companies. I think they see the writing on the wall. I know they clung on to there's a response from the Newsom administration immediately following AG Bonta's regulations, but it since has been walked back, and he's moved back and regained his brief loss of sanity in that moment, coming out against the tribes briefly. But I don't see this really having that much effect. I think everyone understands what they're doing. Um, And again, it's just another hollow attempt to slow this process down. We've seen, there's a few other companies trying to cause headaches. The online poker company, what is it? Club WPT has been out here.
Yeah, we've seen those losers. Yeah, and
Oh,
by the way, they're doing, business with other tribes in Oklahoma and stuff
mhm.
like too, so
Yeah,
but
it's a challenging time right now because there's so many different layers that affect this. Because while we're talking about sweepstakes, it's not that far away from sports betting. And then you have CFTC and prediction markets kind of wrapping it in there. And so for tribes that maybe aren't in gaming right now, this is a lot of information to take in. How do you know how these are all related together? How do you know which one differentiates, which, one we should support, which one we don't? So it comes again back to outreach and information. And while we have done a very good job here in California, there's always room to improve. And these guys are looking for those weak points. And we need to be looking for the same things. Like, look at what we've done well. That's great. What we have we struggled with? Where has our failures been at? Has it been on the education for CTFC? Because I still talk to tribal leaders today who still don't fully understand the issue, and it makes them uncomfortable speaking about it, which is the last thing we need right now. Like
yeah.
you, we might not be able to defeat this, but we sure as heck can make sure that the spotlight is on it and that more and more people whose other industries are affected by this see this. We can be those ones waving our hands and making sure it gets the attention that it deserves. But you can't do that if you don't understand the issue. So I think we continue to work on that, and I think we can get that done. But it's a complicated issue right now in California.
Yeah, well, you know what? And my recommendation would be as soon as this webinar is over, you call them up and you say you want twice the amount of money they promised you and get it in cash.
See, I was gonna suggest that. I didn't know if it was like was
No,
kosher
get
of
it in
me to come in
cash,
and
get it
offer that,
now,
say
because
that,
that's
but
all
Yeah.
they
If
get
they're if
eight.
you're if they're offering you X, ask for 3X and tell me
Yeah,
why.
and get it in cash and get it now because AB 831 is going to pass. It's going to
Yeah.
go forward. This is stuff has been done before. This game plan has been tight and it's worn out. And it just shows the lack of imagination. The Chris Grove and the Social Promotions Gaming Association has been. What's funny with me was this report that they did, the sweepstakes tax report. Did you see that, James? That
Yeah.
came from the thing was the social gaming leadership asked Eilers Krychek to do a report, which Chris Grove is partner emeritus of Eilers Krychek. And yet the funny part is they don't even mention his name. They said, listen, we're going to ask the partner from Eilers Krychek to write this report and send it in. And we saw it. And, it was hard to stop laughing.
Yeah.
It was hard to read it through the tears of laughter. You know what I mean? You saw it, Dustin.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I include in my newsletters that I do the closing line and one on prediction market. So like I include the stuff. I thought that one was a little out there in terms of claiming all this economic impact in California. Obviously you can do a report and do statistics any way you want. I was gonna say like I've been doing this long enough, and you guys will remember like this does seem like a little bit of the game plan back like poker like a decade plus ago.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely, Dustin.
but maybe like on a smaller scale, but like this is what like that's what happened then. Like there's like everything got segmented up. Certain tribes were aligned with certain operators and certain wanted this to happen a certain way, and like at the end of the day that was how like it was probably never going to happen anyway with poker in California, but like that just made it all the harder, right? And I think that's why they're trying this. It's worked again. It's worked in sports betting to some extent, right? And DFS I think too as well. So
Well, it's like they took the FanDuel DraftKings strategy from a couple years ago and just put the white out on top and said, the SPGA strategy to pass out and stuff like that. So it just has been comical. Although and by the way, James, those are really great words. I think that's the way you approach the issue with the tribes is you reach out, you educate, and that's why you're in a leadership position and I'm not, you know. You do a great job, man. You know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But let's, AB 31, where are we at with this thing? So, and by the way, I got a text right before we started that if you go check into VGW right now, Chumba gives a little pop-up that says, go to an online petition and to stop it in California. And we know how influential online petitions are, don't we? You know, so, where are we with 831? James, sorry.
It has been moving through both houses on suspense, which is great, which means it just goes through without any vote from the committees. We'll wait to see where the Senate takes it up when we come back from this. I think they're on a 2-week break. Yeah.
Okay.
2-week break. Wow. So what do we think, Jason?
Well, I mean, real quick, James, you guys are having a special election in California. Is that this year, the
I think
redistricting?
he's talking about
election?
November, right?
Yeah. It's to go on to the November ballot for the redistricting.
And I mean, is there any other elections this November? Like, there's nothing.
No, I don't think there's any statewide seats.
Right.
It's a special election.
Right.
Yeah. So this election will be mostly like propositions and things.
Well, I just asked that because I mean, what's coming up down the pike, Dustin, and you said is if we get some new folks over in the House that are seeing the travesty of all this and it's moving way too fast for anyone to comprehend. To your guys' point earlier, football season's gearing up, and surprisingly, I'm seeing a lot of damn sweepstakes ads, especially more out here on the East Coast. I saw a whole bunch in New Mexico. I was just out there for a week with the Pueblos out there, and lots of sweepstake ads in New Mexico because I don't think they've taken any moves towards cracking down in the state there. And Victor, this is going to have to be more than whack-a-mole eventually. The states can outlaw it, but again, when you get that crypto component in there, it's going to make it a lot easier to play.
What they get, and when Black Friday come, these poker companies were firmly entrenched. They were running the industry. They were worldwide. They were global. They were powerful, and like that, man, game over. So I think a lot of the people in the industry see that and remember that, and I think that's why you're seeing this rat line from DFS to sweepstakes right now. Dustin, what about that? So I think we all know very well that price picks and underdogs are putting themselves up, for sale. I believe you had it in your one of your newsletters like a week ago that they're preparing to go into prediction markets. That's correct, right? Did I read that right?
Yeah, I mean that's preparing. It's a little maybe strong. I mean, there's a lot going on.
Inquiring
in all this. Like, let me step back. Like, all these things that we're talking about are also like having children, like making babies, like sweepstakes prediction markets or like sweepstakes crypto. These are things that are coming or already exist. And I'm sure Jason's like seeing like there are things out there that are acting like prediction markets that are also sweepstakes. Like, because why would you go through the hassle of being a CFTC regulated prediction market if I could do this in sweepstakes, right? Like, why would you do it? Why would you do it? Like, why you can serve. You don't have to pay $100 million to get a designated contract market. You don't have to do so. Like, again, like everybody's like prediction markets are big right now, but like everybody's going to then now try to push that. It's going to be crypto. It's going to Polymarket Kalshi. There's value for them being regulated and being like Kalshi's already started down this path. Polymarket is going to be pretty large scale, but like if everybody else is coming in to challenge them, why am I going to go do it through the CFTC? Why don't I do it as a sweepstakes, like or something else, or in crypto, or anything else? Like those are the ways to attack the problem. Back to Prize Picks. So Prize Picks is really interesting because they went to, like, I think you guys know, they went to a peer-to-peer only in California, like before the AG opinion even came out. That was presaging the fact that they were going to do this everywhere, which came out yesterday. I think SBC actually broke the news saying that Prize Picks was going totally peer-to-peer, no more against the house parlays, which, does that matter in California? It matters in a lot of places for sure. They're going to do, like, it's some places have said you can't do this against house, you can do it peer-to-peer. Some places say you can't do it at all anywhere. But so they're trying to definitely like become less gray, clearly not entirely white as we sit here, but less gray. The sale has been sitting out there. There's also the report that they've registered like they got a very initial step of how to get in the prediction markets of registering with the National Futures Association. Does that mean they're going to do it? I don't know. If I'm Prize Picks and Underdog, I'm absolutely trying to get into prediction markets right now, whether that's CFTC regulated or something else. Like I would definitely be trying to do that in a world where, you know, their total addressable market isn't going up. Certainly, it may go down at some still, depending on how California shakes out. And what I guess I'm not here to ask questions, but I guess I'm curious what you
Go
guys
ahead,
think.
ask. Yeah.
Like, what are you hearing on the Attorney General front? Are they like, is there going to be is enforcement coming on the opinion, or is it just kind of we're sitting here in limbo and things are going to keep going as they are?
I mean, we at CNIGA have made the request for some enforcement because in his initial letter, like he lays out like enforcement will be coming. Like this is their interpretation of the law, and they're going to enforce if these companies don't shut down. So of course we follow up is like, what does that mean when you say enforcement? Is there a plan?
Right.
Have a timeline in the very least? We haven't had a response for that, so we are in a little bit of limbo there. Yeah, and it's interesting that as you mentioned, you know, Prize Picks and Underdogs looking to get into to prediction markets. And you know, Prize Picks, I will say, has been the one company that they have made that offer in the past about moving to a specific type of game if this is the, you know, the path that the tribes wanted to go down about, you know, the dual currency games or what have you. So it's interesting to see them actually live up to that, which up until this point has just been, you know, kind of lip service. But um, I think it will be very difficult to actually get enforcement anytime soon. I think he's, especially with the bill moving forward as quickly as it has, I think absolutely he's going to wait to see what happens with the bill. I would anticipate there to be, you know, some type of lawsuit following the adoption of the bill. I don't expect that if it reaches the governor's desk to have any chance of a veto. I think he'll move forward with it pretty swiftly. Um, but it'll be interesting because even now that we talk about these three things, you talk about like the children and the different aspects they're making, like sweepstakes, prediction markets, and things like that. Last week we noticed that FanDuel's Flutter parent company Flutter announced a partnership with the CME, with the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, essentially laying out that first kind of initial step towards moving to their prediction market platform, which I think we've all anticipated, especially as talks and timelines, you know, extend in California as far as what sports betting look like. I think those companies start to look more and more at prediction markets. And, you know, as we see the sweepstakes companies move to prediction markets, it seems like everybody is now looking at that as kind of the low hanging fruit, the way to get into California that they haven't been able to find up until now.
Yeah. And I spoke with Victor about that in particular a little bit last week, like after it, like I understand from the tribe's perspective, like this looks bad. Like you don't want FanDuel, like potentially messing around with sports betting in California. I get that. Maybe they ring fence California down the road. Who knows? Like there's so like, I think what's hard to ask of the sportsbook companies is to say, you got to sit it out until all the court, like I like just like coming at it from like a totally like 30,000 foot view. Like, can FanDuel really just sit out and let Kalshi and Polymarket take their lunch everywhere? I don't think they can. And like, you know, I'll sound like a FanDuel stan. I kind of am, but like they are doing this in a like arguably the smartest way they can. They are partnering with an unimpeachable group in CME, right? Like that's hard to argue with that. They're a button down company in the financial world. They are only doing financial stuff at the beginning. They're gonna no, there's no doubt about it. They're building a platform so that they can do sports betting down. Like, but they're doing it so they're hedging, right? They're saying we need to be ready and we need to be ready to move on this, but this is how we're doing it right now. And like they obviously gamed this out, like how how can we start getting ready for this world where Kalshi wins in court, sports betting is legal in 50 states, and we have no choice but to do something about it. And you know, like Kalshi is not going to Kalshi, Polymarket, nobody else, any of the existing ones aren't going to ring fence. You know, I'd say FanDuel would, like, or like, will they ring fence California? I don't know, but like like, for instance, in Ohio, like we saw Ohio come out this week, the regulator there said you can't work with Kalshi and offer a prediction market, right? That's off the table. So like they can ring fence Ohio and then still offer it in whatever 49 states or whatever it ends up being, because certainly other regulators will follow Ohio into the state and how that's going to happen. So, it's like, in a theoretical world, it's nice to say, yes, they should, like, everybody should stay out of it. But right now I like to say we're at the hate the game, not the player. Like, because the game is the game. The game is prediction markets are here, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they go away over the course of all of the legal wranglings in federal court across the country, but maybe they don't. Like, it's hard for me to handicap that. And I like the people there's not that many people who like really follow this stuff legally closely. I talked to Andrew Kim, who's been really good on this subject, and I think is a pretty neutral source. And like, I don't know, we haven't said like, it's like a coin flip whether what ends up happening, right? I think right now as things stand, Maryland's kind of, I think there's a judge in Maryland said, like, didn't grant a preliminary injunction to Kalshi. It got kicked up to an appeals court. Like, that's kind of changed the handicapping of it a little bit, but like, it's still like Kalshi still has a case, right? Like a very good case, and might get Supreme Court, might not, but like, I just don't think you can sit here and say, yeah, courts are going to win. Like, we're going to win in courts. Like, okay, great. Like, but that could be 3 years down the road, and then Kalshi and Polymarket are entrenched as the leaders in federally regulated sports betting, and you can't sit there and twiddle your thumb. So I think, so we'll see what happens. It's fascinating to see all what's happened on this, and like, we weren't even having discussions 6 months ago, right? Like, we started having it at IGA, right?
January,
February.
started. Yeah, February when we were in Barcelona for
Yeah.
ICE, when this all started. We were in talking about it, sitting around the table talking about, but that's exactly what we're talking about, though. This was all about arbitrage. They know the moment the government's in disarray, you run fast, you break things, nobody's going to stop us. Let's go in until Dustin's Freedom of Information Act kind of did it. But it goes back to my point that California is where they were going to choose to stay and fight. And I called this months ago, is that we want you guys here in California. We knew they wouldn't run. This is where they were going to plant the flag, where they think they were going to, and it's hysterical to me that Chris Grove and Lawrence Escalante think that after all these state after state after state, New Jersey and Louisiana and that are just shutting them down, that all of a sudden California, they're going to be able to play nice. And, that ridiculous report from Analyst Krychek was just absolutely just trash. You know what I mean? And by the way, those guys need to start, James, I think you guys need to start making sure those guys are registered as lobbyists, because they're not partial. Chris Grove is a partner, and these guys are coming in and, listen, they do great work. I'm not talking about their other work. I'm talking about those guys who sweeps. It's when it's just garbage. You know what I mean? We looked at that report, and, again, it was hard to read through the tears of laughter. It was not a serious document, but it was a document meant to reinforce this narrative that they're trying to push in California about AB 31 and stuff like that. So, but I think these guys need to be registered as lobbyists because they're not impartial. You know what I mean? I talked to Adam Kraychek, and he told me we have investments. You know what I mean? We were brought this deal, and we could have invested it in FanDuel and DraftKings, but we didn't. But this deal was just too much for us to say no, so we're invested. They have skin in the game. You know what I mean? And there was no part of that in that report.
No.
So sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now. I apologize. That just gets my goat. It just really pisses me off.
I'll do my one little bit of not apologizing for the sweepstakes, but note that they are. I think James kind of alluded to this too. Is that it's often portrayed as like this homogenous group of companies, right? And I don't think that's quite right. I think they're like, again, we can pick apart all of it and what it is. Like, I think sweepstakes at the beginning, when all this started, they really tried to like actually be a sweepstakes. And I think there's at least some confusion in the law between this is illegal sweepstakes and is this illegal gambling. I think that's the part that's happened for me in the last couple of years is like everybody, like the early adopters of this, the VGWs, the Chumbas, and all of that, were really trying to operate a legitimate sweepstakes where they followed all the rules of the sweepstakes. And now I don't think that's the case. Like this obviously came up to a head at G2E kind of last year when you guys really became more aware of it, even though VGW has been around for a decade. And the transparency, like I worked for an affiliate marketing company that was sending leads also to sweepstakes companies and like Chumba like 10 years ago. This is like, it's not really that new. The industry in the explosion it's kind of experienced in the last 10 years is new. And it's also interesting to note that it was originally just casino and poker, and then sports betting came along partially because PASPA got repealed. And there's actually, it's fascinating to go back and look. Like PASPA actually has languages about sports betting sweepstakes, right? Like that you can't do a sweepstakes bet based on sporting events. And then obviously PASPA fell, and like then you started seeing this. And a footnote to history is that VGW actually had one, and they shuttered it. I don't know why, but it was called Fend Off. They had one but they quickly shut it down. But then other ones started coming in, filling that gap, and now there's lots that are both casinos and sports books and poker and all of that. Anyway, get back to the point of like there's companies that I don't think are really good actors in the space either. Like there's categories. There's good actors. Good actors is, I mean, you guys aren't think they're none of them are good actors. There's ones that are trying to run sweepstakes like legitimately and like follow what they think is the law everywhere, and that there's an argument about that at least. But then there's ones that are like, there's no real company behind it. They're skins from some Central European company. They're marketing it as gambling. Like I think I did this at IGA too. Like I'm constantly getting ads on Instagram and Facebook about like these deposit, right? Like the whole argument is that you're not depositing, you're purchasing sweeps, free coins, and you might get some real money equivalent on the side. That's a difference that I don't think like everybody also takes into account, that they're doing things that are like, again, push the boundary. And like if you had like real or quasi regulation that everybody agreed to, again, there's 100 plus operators in that space, then maybe there's some argument there. But like these better actors, I won't say good actors, better actors versus the ones that are kind of doing everything willy-nilly and aren't really trying to win a sweepstakes and are like not pretending that this is not real money betting. Like that's the part, I think that's the problem, is that the envelope has been pushed to like, you can do this. And it's like, it's indistinguishable how they market it and how they do it. And, I don't know what that means for anything. Like, again, I know you guys argue it's all illegal, and like, I'm not going to argue with that. It might like, but I've at least seen over the years, like if they follow sweepstakes laws in a lot of states, does that, then there's some friction with the existing online gambling, and you can't like, and now it's coming to a head, right, in the last year with all the regulatory and legal action we've seen across the country.
Real quick, Dustin, we've had other folks on here that follow these issues real closely. Why isn't the commercial industry, using more of their power to go after a lot of this stuff? I mean, I'm just baffled. I mean, recently the AGA has come out hard against Quintens, but I don't understand. It has to feel existential to them as well, I would think. And because that was our message from the get-go, is this could end it all, because if people aren't coming to your casino, if they can just walk around on the phone, do sports betting, have sweepstakes type stuff going on. Our customer base is older already, Dustin, and the same with commercial gaming. It's interesting that I don't know. And that maybe it's all around society. There's so much passivity. We've got 2,000 National Guard troops in DC, and it's more satire than a crisis, frankly. But what is? I mean, Adelson. I mean, I feel like they could just walk into the White House and say, this is not the way. You got an entire casino industry built upon regulation and hard work.
Maybe you should lobby for an executive order. Like if there's an executive order, like what yesterday, that you can't burn, that you go to jail if you burn a flag. Right?
Yeah,
anyway, but I digress. We're not talking larger politics today, but I mean, it's complicated. I mean, I think the industry has come out against it. Like, like the big operators in online casino regulated online casino have definitely come out against it. It's interesting because everybody, like a lot of people in Tribe Excluded, offer like social casino, right? Which is not at all the same. Like there's parallels, but it's not the same. Like there's no way for you to like deposit and like 1-to-1, like you're getting money to gamble, right? So I think there's some reticence to like go like guns blazing and say like this is like we don't like this. The AGA I think has been very against it and pretty like loud about it. Like, but right now there's a lot, like you guys know, like everything we're talking about, there's a lot of things at once coming at us at once. Like which of these things is the thing that, and it's so hard to do anything. Like the CFTC is almost, and prediction markets is almost an easier lift, right? Because it's one regulator, one law really. I mean, it's a mix of laws, but like there's only one front of a way to attack it. Like, although now the tribes are attacking it from under IGRA too, right? We've seen two lawsuits already from tribes saying you can't do this on tribal land, which I think is a good argument as well. But like that, it's like again, you said it here on this webcast before. It's whack-a-mole sometimes, right? Like how like you're playing like even in a world where you're successful in stopping in California, it's still a business. Like this is like there's no answer coming at the federal level. States are some states are just totally ambivalent. I think the thing that gets underplayed in all of this is that people in states that don't have betting at all, now you have betting, right? Like that's, or gambling or whatever you want to call it. Like that's something, I think that's almost an existential crisis. Like Kalshi likes to go out, oh yeah, we're taking people from offshore and putting them legal in a regulated thing. Okay, great. Like there are 20 states, like there's 20 plus states that have online betting. Now all of the rest of them, including California, including Texas, have online betting that nobody ever said they wanted. Places like the extreme case like Utah, there's never been gambling in Utah. Now you can go on your phone and bet on sports events and touchdown props and all of that. That's the part that gets like, yes, there's some conflict between like the states that regulate it and don't want the competition for it and want to make sure their operators are protected. But then there's all this gambling that didn't used to exist in the state, and now it does. And there's no, again, there's like, it depends on what that state thinks. Is it like, there's a million things going on in every state, as you guys know. California is no different. And is this a priority to stop this versus anything else? Like, but I think it's very underreported and under thought about that there's all this gambling going on now in states that have not legalized anything, and now it's just here. And like, I don't think that's good, honestly.
Well, I mean, I hope it doesn't take a recession or, Vegas numbers are already down. Because a recession would obviously impact the casino industry pretty severely. People will rein in their entertainment spending, or worse, Dustin, some kind of just huge, scandal with either players betting on themselves anonymously or through family members, which is already going on. And there's no way to detect it if you're using crypto, if you're using
crypto for sure. I mean, like
that are ostensibly, yeah.
Like you don't have a ton of visibility in like what's going on at Kalshi, but again, you can bet on props at Sweepstakes too, and all of that. Like some of that is plugged into IC360, I believe. Like because there is that risk of on integrity matters. But like the example I like to put to is like when Kalshi says, "Oh, we're like nobody, like we're definitely surveilling markets," like. It's this one's gone on the radar in a way a lot of things I've done recently haven't, but like a California gubernatorial candidate bet on himself at Kalshi. He was not restricted. He went on it, videoed himself doing it on Kalshi, posted it on social media. Like he's literally a candidate. He's literally bet on himself. Like he didn't bet. Then like you could bet on himself to win and then sell his shares and make some money on the fact because the guy's not going to win. He's some Yahoo Republican. Again, to circle back to the beginning, and like a Nazi apologist, if not a Nazi supporter, like who's running for the Republican nomination in California. Like that happened, and like I wrote a story about it. Kalshi said, "We'll get back to you." It never got back to me, but like that happened. Like if you can't stop a gubernatorial candidate from betting on himself and then posting on social media, broadcasting the world, like what are you actually doing?
Right.
Like I don't have a whole lot of transparency into what Kalshi's doing on a day-in-day basis. Yes, they have market surveillance teams. Yes, they are stopping probably some amount of it, but like they have thousands of markets up. Are they stopping? And they and like an inside secret, not an inside secret, just a thing about prediction markets is sometimes they see insider trading as a feature, not a bug, because it allows us to like price what's going on in the world. So like famously in Polymarket, like stuff that's going on overseas, like in Israel, like there's almost certainly people trading on like markets around Israel, bombings in Israel and things like that. And like what like the process, like what's going on there. And like some people think that's a feature because like now we're pricing it, now we'll be able to tell like what are the odds of something happening. And like, yes, there is actual value to that in the real world from a military intelligence standpoint. Anyway, I've gone far afield, but like it's like
No,
but it's like it all kind of underlines there's not a whole lot of they don't necessarily care that it's inside trading. They definitely need to care about sports betting. You can't have it. Like you cannot have players betting on themselves, right? Like
yeah, the
and
NFL came out, I think it was the NFL that said
Yesterday, yeah.
our gambling policy applies to prediction markets,
right.
whatever that means. I mean, again, how are they going to know if
They said it's gambling. It feels like
Yeah.
gambling. It looks like a duck, walks like a duck.
Yeah, like again, that I like how she has the IC 360 deal, which is if you don't know, is the mod like they work with all the sports books and all of that, and to like to stop player like in theory stop players from being able to bet on themselves or bet on their sport or all of that, or at least they'll flag it if it happens. So like how she's plugged into that is like I don't know that if crypto.com, which also offers these markets, has done that. I don't know that's the case. Polymarket certainly does not. They're not even, still as of today, not regulated in the United States and not really regulated anymore. So.
Wow.
Well, James, we got our work cut out for us in this fall. You guys got stuff moving in California legislature, and then I just tribes are going to come together in DC the week of September 15th, trying to, forestall whatever we can. And I mean, in terms of it's weird, Dustin, the budget for Indian country coming out of the House and the Senate doesn't look that bad. In fact, it's relatively stable. They increased some of the money for Indian Health Service. They're going to preserve Indian education.
That's amazing in the current atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And that speaks to our allies there. But if there's a shutdown, that's all off the table. And really the way the budgets are now, at least the ones that have come out of committees and stuff, those can't pass in the House because there's too many folks that are going to vote against it because they want another 20 to 40% cuts in government spending, which is just totally off the wall. But so we got our work cut out for us, and we're going to try to, make this fall less painful. Of course, tribes are 0.5% of the federal budget, 0.5%. But the last shutdown was under the Trump first term. It was almost 4 months long. It was over Christmas holidays. There were some bad weather events in Indian country, and we had people furloughed, and you couldn't clear the roads to get people to their appointments for their medical appointments. It was a lot of bad stuff going on in Indian, especially out west with some bad snowstorms. Park Service wasn't around to help out. None of that, and Indian country always suffers the most under a shutdown. And it's unfortunate because a lot of our employees and people that are on contract are deemed, we're not essential, but they are essential on the reservation. And so, James, we're going to, hopefully you guys are, at least some of California folks are coming out. I know there's stuff going on in the legislature there, which makes it hard, but we've got to really just bear down. And, I love the reporting from Dustin and other folks because that really keeps us. Unfortunately, Dustin, I can tell you right now, a lot of the folks in Congress, this is just like, I don't even know if it registers. They are so far afield from this, and they have no clue what's about to come down the pike with crypto, which they should, right? Given that last, Bankman-Fried, the whole disaster there where they had to bail out banks. I mean,
yeah, people like to think there's going to be some moment come with prediction markets where like people stop in the common sense, and I'm like, yeah, like at the congressional level, like it's wild, like that the gambling tax revision that was in the big beautiful bill that like captured attention in a way that actually shocked me. That people are like a gambling issue and like it got some critical mass, but like prediction markets, I don't know. Like we've had hearings about DFS over the years, but like nothing happened. Like there's no, I don't know what would have to happen, but for like that kind of moment to happen in prediction markets, but I don't think you can count on that happening.
Right. And
I think I agree with Dustin. I think, until you have some big, massive scandal, like you say, Jason, I think people are just, this gamification of everything. People are, but you're starting to see a real big blowback in the industry every single day. There's another scandal. There's more issues with addiction. There's another court case
Mhm.
with theft from another secretary that embezzled from her office, and this is day in and day out. And so, I think at some point there needs to be a reckoning, but I don't know if we're there yet.
Mhm.
So, well, gentlemen, we're done at the
Yeah,
top
thank
of the
you.
hours. This conversation was so big and wide. Maybe I was so ambitious, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because there's so much, but it goes to the point is that, this is a front fight. It's not just with sweepstakes, it's with DFS, it's with prediction market, it's with the gamification of America,
Mhm.
so. But Dustin, thank you so much for coming. You were great. That was fun. We haven't been interviewed by our guests before. We really enjoyed that. James, thanks again, brother, for bringing us the
Thank you so much.
knowledge and some really wise words. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, James.
And everyone, thanks a lot for sticking
Where,
with us. And
where are you based, Dustin?
I'm up in Oregon,
Oh, okay, okay.
on the high
Nice.
desert up here. I'm not far from a tribe up here where there's a
Uh-huh.
resort as well.
Nice.
Warm Springs up here in
Oh, okay.
Central Oregon.
Okay.
yeah,
Awesome.
and remember, Dustin flew down and with James, they spoke at in San Diego, and it was one of the best sessions of the show. Everybody was just mesmerized, Dustin. That was really fun. Again, thank you, my friend. Thank you, sir. Both of you guys. And we'll see you next week. And then the week after that, we're going to be in Minnesota. And we'll also be talking about prediction markets and sweepstakes and stuff like that in Minnesota. So if you want to come and talk to us and give us some more information, we're always willing to chat. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank
See you
you,
guys next
Dustin,
week.
James. Take
Cheers.
care,
Bye.
guys.